Welcome to the SEGA Lounge, where we celebrate our love for all things SEGA, including the games, the music, and the community. I'm your host, KC. Join me as I talk to different guests and learn more about their projects and passion for SEGA. Hello everyone, welcome to the SEGA Lounge. This is a special episode of the show with two amazing Like a Dragon fans. So let's start with that. We have Brian. Hello, Brian. The Junkyard
Howdy.
Man.
Yeah. Hey, Casey. Thanks for having me.
Both junkyards, right?
Yeah. I don't know. I'm so busy lately. I just do what I can. So I think some stuff with the Dream Pod, the Dreamcast Junkyard, wrote a couple of things on their blog recently, and then do some of the podcasts, and then really just doing podcasts for the Saturn Junkyard, the Titan Cast when we can, but that's very rare. So you can't. Maybe I'm neither, really.
Okay, you're just a man. Okay, yeah, you're the Streets of Rage man. Yeah. Today, for people listening in, they don't see, but you have a pretty cool Streets of Rage cap going on there. So well done.
I love the brim on it. It's great.
Yeah. Excellent.
Great merchandise. Definitely good promotion as well.
Yeah.
You can head over to the SEGA shop. Okay.
I don't remember where I got it, actually. Yeah, I have no idea where I got it. I think Spencer's or something.
It just appeared one day.
Yeah.
It's fine.
That's usually how it goes with SEGA merch. If you're a SEGA fan, it just appears.
Yeah. You just dig through a random box you had and then find things you didn't know existed.
There we go. And I know you're busy with moving to another country, so I really appreciate you being here, Brian, and taking the time to talk to us about this game. And you know, on the other side of the pond, we have Viper. Hello, Viper.
Hello. Your backup option is available again. It's so exciting to be here.
You were not a backup option, actually.
Weirdly.
No. You're never a backup option.
Always
but this
strange
time you
to be a
definitely
first
weren't.
choice.
Yeah. So you've been busy with not moving to a different country, Viper?
Yeah, just moving back up and down the same country. We're back in place for the moment. It's good. So we'll stay put there for now, I think.
That's a good choice.
I'll stay put here.
Appreciate you being here as well. So for people, listening to us, this is a special roundtable episode to talk a little bit about Like a Dragon Gaiden, the man who erased his name, which is the most recent game in the Like a Dragon / Yakuza series by RGG Studio. And we have a lot of stuff to talk about here. I'll be honest, in going here first, because I'm the host, I can't. I love this game. So I'll just straight out say this. I really enjoyed this game more than I thought I would, to be honest. It's shorter. It's maybe more focused, but not really, because I still got lost in all the side stuff. I only just finished the game this morning. Okay, just because we had to do this. We had this scheduled because I as I usually do with all the Like a Dragon games, I got sidetracked so hard with all the random stuff you can do and all the Akame Network and everything else. But I really said to myself, no. This morning before work, you got to sit down and quickly go through the last chapter. Just do it, because you need to talk about the game later. So yeah. So my first question for you guys, and feel free to mention whatever you wanna mention here. We'll try to, at least for now, keep it a little bit like spoiler free. Maybe we'll try to save any potential spoilers to the end of the conversation. But feel free to mention whatever you feel like at this point. Overall impressions of the game. Let's start with you, Viper. Did you enjoy it?
I'm in the same boat as you. I loved it. I knew where I thought I would stand going into it, but I didn't expect to enjoy it to the same level that I did, if that makes sense. It was... See, we're already saying we're not in the realm of spoilers, but it kind of ties into the entire marketing of the game. It's something that a lot of people never thought would happen again, so to see it happen in the way that it did was exciting, but even just beyond that novelty, the game really holds up, and it immediately left an impact on me that I don't think other games in the series really have, and that's saying something because they're so important to me in my life that something coming along quickly trumping that in terms of how much I enjoyed it was just so unsurprising yet really surprising at the same time. So I'm really happy with it, and it was a nice palate cleanser, as I'm sure we might get onto as well. It felt really refreshing in comparison to other games in the series, even though it's almost going back to its roots in a sense. It's actually a really nice way to do so, and one that I wasn't expecting to love as much as I did, even though I was. It's so hard to explain, but
I feel you.
I'm doing my best.
Yeah. I feel like when they announced the game and we realized we were going to have Kiryu back, spoilers. No, not really. He's alive. When we got that info, I was like, oh yes, I loved like 7. So Yakuza Like a Dragon. But I'm not really a turn-based RPG guy, so I'm really much more into the whole action side of things. And I thought I'm gonna enjoy this, at least, to a certain extent. But then after I started playing and getting enthralled in all the story, the mechanics all over again, it's, surprisingly an unsurprisingly enjoyable game at the same time. I feel you. Yeah. Brian, what about you?
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. I feel like I also ultimately really enjoyed Gaiden. One of the things, I feel like it kept maybe not gnawing at me, but I couldn't quite shake as I was playing through it, is that it felt like a greatest hits of just kind of what, at least mechanically, what the type of game that Yakuza always was. Obviously, reverting back to the beat 'em up structure was kind of nice to kind of give fans, an outlet for that amid the pivot towards turn-based combat. But I think it still feels like a pretty cohesive, I don't know, just way to tie in or remind players that, hey, this is the thing you always loved. It's more of that. It's maybe a refined version of that in some respects. And I think we can get into some of the innovations and things it does differently later. And so I appreciated its approach as kind of just being that anchor point to say, hey, I know it's been a few years since you've hung out with Kiryu in this way, but, here you go, just to, satiate people who might have been missing that style of play from it. And I think it did a great job. What I don't think it did was quite push forward the franchise necessarily, at least narratively or structurally, or environment, setting wise, in as much as I would have loved to see it do. But as far as like kind of a, just a, again, that greatest hits, kind of just a reminder of what the heart of the series is. I appreciate it a lot, and I feel like it's been enough time since I played one of those that it hit perfect at this moment.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so that's actually a good question. What was the last time, or the last title in the pre-7 Yakuza titles that you played? You guys remember?
Yeah, it was like 10 years ago. It was 5 for me. Okay. I'm sure I watched a story recap of 6, so I wasn't too spoiled on it when the outset, or at the outset of the game's events for Gaiden kicked in. But I think 5 was probably the last one, and that would have been at the turn of a couple of console generations ago on the PS3, like digitally, when they finally released a localized version after I think PS4 had already been released, and so that ended up being the last new PS3 game I bought, at least when the system was current. So I think it's been a while.
So you skipped 6?
I did skip 6. Yeah, I mean, I bought it and then I just was so busy I forgot to play it. So I supported Sega with my money, with that $60 at launch. But It is what it is.
Okay. What about you, Viper?
Mine's pretty vanilla. It was Ishin. Oh, I always get bullied for this. Is it Ishin or Ishin?
Yeah.
I never know how to say
I
it.
think it's Ishin.
Yeah, I always
say
thought it was
Ishin.
Ishin, and then Ishin was said elsewhere, and it's a whole mess. But yeah, that was the last one I played, only because I thought I want to get this finished before Gaiden, because I really dropped off of it. And kind of around the same time, I was playing Kurohyou, the Black Panther, the first Black Panther game. So kind of conventional and not conventional at all. I don't remember which one it was, but either the latest or one of the least remembered, depending on which way you look at it.
Yeah, I forgot about Ishin. I wasn't considering Ishin, so for me it was Ishin for sure. Yeah, but I was actually thinking about 3, which I was playing on the Xbox back in February, perhaps. I think the Ishin came out in late February, I think. So
around that time.
That was when Ishin came out. And a few weeks prior to that, I was playing 3. Never really completed it. I've played it before, but never completed this playthrough. But that was the one that I was considering as my latest played game. But yeah, Ishin, I guess, is another one. Although that one is a little bit different as well. Not really mainline. Right. Yeah. So as you mentioned, Brian, it has been a while since we played a mainline Yakuza / Like a Dragon. I have to just stop saying Yakuza and just go with Like a Dragon at this point. A mainline Like a Dragon. Yeah, a lad game. So this wasn't by any means an innovative title or like groundbreaking. Innovative at times, maybe.
Somewhat,
but not groundbreaking by any means. But I don't think it was supposed to be either. It was like just a way to tie in some loose ends in terms of story. I would say for what they were trying to achieve in that respect, I think they did a pretty good job. I think it was the best hits, like you, greatest hits, as you said. Like a bit of fan service as well, especially towards the end of the story.
Yeah.
Reminiscent of some without spoiling things, reminiscent of some interesting story points in Yakuza Like a Dragon in 7, right, as well, when you got certain appearances by certain characters that you know and love.
When things happen.
So things that happened in Lad 7 also happen in Lad Gaiden through a different lens perspective, right? The perspective of Kiryu. And it all ties in nicely at the end and makes a lot of sense. Right. I'm guessing this wasn't the plan.
No,
at the beginning,
not.
But it kind of feels like this was, even if this wasn't the original plan. I wonder if someone had this as like a backup plan. Okay, so even if we pivot to the turn-based battle system. And if this goes terribly wrong, if people just want Kiryu, can we get like a way to tie in the story and make people feel like this was our original plan all along? I wonder if that was something that they considered beforehand or not. Either way, I think it worked out fine, and it makes a lot of sense. The story makes sense. I don't know if you want to go. I don't think story should be our next topic. I think we should leave that till the end, right? But so speaking of some of the innovations, probably you're thinking about the agent combat agent system. I don't know, what do you call it?
Mm-hmm. The gadgets.
With the gadgets. What did you guys think of that, Viper?
Let's go to. See, I don't know how I feel about it. I like it as an innovation. I initially was quite unsold on it. It's a little bit far-fetched, and then you actually think about it and you're like, hang on, this is a very far-fetched series. We just like to pretend it's grounded in reality. So when you start to think of it a bit more through that lens, I was like, okay, this is so silly I can get on board with it. I can't say I really tended to use it much outside of when it was required, either for story purposes or gameplay purposes, but it does feel like a nice addition. It feels like a way to perhaps attempt some ideas that they were thinking of before. I mean, it feels very much like it could have been its own spin-off, but was brought into this game, very like a Judgment sort of thing. You could have had a detective game and a spy game, etc. So it felt a little bit weird to have in this mainline game with a character who's comes across as a very normal, average person who could exist, and then you think about all the things he's gone through, and you go, "Hang on, never mind." I just don't think it should on paper, but I enjoyed it, just never more than the game required me to enjoy it, if that makes sense. I never used it as my battle style, for example, after a certain point, because as fun as the gadgets are, I just too nostalgic for the original battle style. But I don't know, it's fun enough. I think it's a nice little twist.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Brian.
Yeah, I use them all the time. So I guess we could recap what the gadgets are, right?
Yeah.
So throughout the early part of the narrative, you get a series of abilities for combat. You have the whip, I think was the first one, where it's like a laser. I don't know
It's
what it was.
the spider.
That laser
it's called
whip
the spider,
thing?
right?
Yeah, the spider. Yeah, and so you basically
Think of
use
it like,
it to wrap up enemies.
Spider-Man.
Yeah, throw them around. It's basically Spider-Man web.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's basically Spider-Man, tossing enemies about with that. And then you have the jet shoes, which is you can literally just, I don't know, hover through enemies. And,
of course. As you do.
Yeah, my fiance kind of likened it to like Armored Core. He just like moves, that fluidity of strafing with the boost support, and then you can just plow through enemies that way. And then the cigarettes, so the explosive cigarettes, where it takes a moment to light them, chucks them into a group of enemies, and kaboom. And then what was the last one? It was the drones. The drones.
Oh yeah.
And so those, you just summon a bunch of ads to go and swarm your enemies. I think more they were to draw aggro rather than do a ton of damage. Although, if I wanted to be really cheap, I could, from a distance, just like hammer or whittle away at enemies' health from far away. I liked them because they gave me a new way to approach combat. And I also think they serve the purpose of giving players who may be newer to the series more tools to kind of make it easier, I suppose, because they really do. Some of those are very overpowered, especially once you upgrade them. So I could kind of see it operating on that tier as far as like, easing people into combat and then whatever else. I just enjoyed it for the novelty. And then I think the other thing is just narratively, like it kind of answers the question, what are they going to do about Kiryu when he's older, right? Like, because he's getting up there at this point, right? He was in his 30s in 2005, and like so he's not going to be like the legendary. He's not going to maintain that legendary strength of the Dragon of Dojima forever, right? And so this kind of offers a hint at like how they may sustain his relevancy in combat as if they decide to tackle that in a future, in future editions, as far as like, what does it mean to be vulnerable and to rely on these things as as your physical abilities decline. But I don't know. Who knows if that's the intent, but it certainly made me think about that.
Yeah, they'll probably give him a decked out wheelchair or something.
I hope.
Yeah,
I mean,
at some point
they're already giving them segues in 8, so they're halfway there already.
And so that, I don't think this is spoiling anything. It was basically teased and announced by Sega. So Kiryu has access to these gadgets because he's like basically sort of a secret agent, and that's what he's been doing. in a way. And some of them you get later because you find a specific character that just gives you some gadgets to play around with. I personally, I'm actually a bit of both, but I was on the same boat as Viper first, and I think I said this during a Radio Sega show. I was not enjoying the new combat system at all at first. I thought it was a little bit clunky because I think there's a moment in the early stages of the game where you really just can only use the agent mechanics, or at least you're required to traverse a certain area, and you will need those gadgets and those systems. So you can switch, but it just doesn't make much sense because you need the gadgets to get through that. And I thought at first they felt a little bit clunky. Even the dragon, is it the dragon style? I don't remember. Yakuza
style.
Yeah, Yakuza style. Even
the
that
style slash, yeah.
I think they call it Yakuza, this one. Before upgrading a certain abilities, it feels a little bit clunky as well, I think, at the beginning. So I wasn't really feeling either of the styles, to be honest. But when I started upgrading both mechanics, both styles, getting more moves, upgrading the gadgets get really useful at some point, especially if you enter heat mode, right? Extreme heat mode. The explosive cigarettes especially, it's just like, and I think this was a nice innovation for the many situations in this game when you're surrounded by a lot of enemies, right? You have, like, not just in this game, but I think in this particular game there are several situations where you have like to fight a lot of enemies at the same time. You're like getting surrounded. So having these gadgets to resort to as a way to like just get a breather or make some room to escape and regroup, I think that's a good way to keep things fresh and interesting. But as I went along, I feel like I agree with Viper. I at some point I started using the agent system or whatever style more and more, but by the end of the game I was like full on Yakuza for those like final story moments and stuff.
It's just too appropriate.
It's appropriate. You feel like you're more powerful that way. I didn't upgrade everything. I don't know if you did. Didn't have time.
No, not enough money.
Exactly. But the things that I upgraded, I think I had a pretty good balanced agent style and a pretty balanced Yakuza style as well. The things that I upgraded were fine enough. I had, I think, full health, but I was missing some moves on either style. And in the agent side, I upgraded maybe half of the gadgets. So I had still have a lot to do if I want to go back to the game, which I can. Still a lot to do. But I think I got a pretty good sense of how the game was supposed to be played. And having that freedom, especially when you compare it with the other styles that we had in previous games, like Brawler, Rush, or what's the other one? Like the most powerful one? Can't remember.
Dragon.
Is it Dragon?
I think Dragon's the name of the one which then became Yakuza in this one, yeah.
Okay,
they
probably
change the name of stuff all the time, unsurprisingly. Like the entire series, it's fine.
But the styles are back to their original names in Infinite Wealth, if you've played the demo, which we'll talk about in a little bit.
Yeah.
But they reverted them back to the original names. But those styles were basically just Brawler style with less or more movement and fluidity and right, a little bit more power or less power. This time you have something truly different that makes things feel fresh and interesting, even if they're not your preferred fighting style. I think it's fun to have and nice to be able to do to play the game this way. I found them useful, the gadgets, also for street battles, especially the jet boots, whatever they're called, because you could evade enemies.
Oh, yeah.
And just skip the battles altogether. If I was just like, which I did this morning when I was, oh, I really need to finish this game. So, oh no, here they come again. So let me go. just skip the battles, the street battles altogether. So it's useful for that reason as well. Would you like to see this like become a feature of the main games? The agent style or any of it, like any of the gadgets or anything?
I see it as a great starting point for building on. I think ultimately, if they were to develop this further and lean into it, I would probably want to see some rebalancing. Although I found myself a lot of the times using the gadgets when there were a lot of weaker enemies on screen for crowd control, and so those jet boots. You could just bowl through people, and it was a huge damage dealer in those situations, especially when you couldn't, as far as I know, I didn't find any items where you could, deter or turn off battles altogether like you could in some of the other games, where nobody would fight you because you were wearing a magic headband or some bullshit. But I love the but I love the ability to expedite or expedite. Excuse me. I love the ability to expedite those battles even more, and so you could, just a few rounds of back and forth of bowling with the jet shoes, and you could rack up some KOs pretty quickly. And then once you got some of that additional enemies out of the way, then you could switch to the brawler style or whatever, the Yakuza style, and go ham that way. So that's kind of how I played a lot of the time. I enjoyed the option, right? Like, I don't think it hurt to offer that as a supplemental option to the core style. But if they were to lean into it in future games, I would definitely love to see some sort of I don't know, some sort of directional progress towards other unique gadgets you could use, maybe more situational or like strategy focus, where there are certain bosses that you could use a particular gadget to gain an advantage, and maybe it wouldn't be mandatory, but it would make that fight a lot easier. I think we saw a couple examples of it in this game, but really leaning into that as like a way to make boss battles and other battles feel more distinct from each other is giving you more options to approach them accordingly. So I loved it in that sense, and I would like to see it in the future.
Yeah, the only specific use of the gadgets in that way that you just mentioned, I think it's in the final battle, but you don't really do anything.
No.
You just see a cutscene of Kiryu using the spider, right? So he just pulls the guy. It's a nice cutscene moment, but not really something that you did. And that's another thing. The gadgets are not really useful against the more powerful enemy. Not true, but especially the spider. The spider is not really useful because you can't. They're too strong, or they cut the spider when you're trying to pull them in, to rope them in. I guess the others are somewhat useful, but the cigarette, if they move around a lot, doesn't affect them because they move away from it. Maybe the shoes, the drones are just deal.
The drone. I mean, if it was 1-on-1, you could spam them with drones to draw the aggro away, or at least delay it for a bit, and then run in for additional damage. But and some of them you could tie, like the spider web. If you upgraded enough, there were more options for when you could use as a long range grapple, even for larger bosses, where you could do follow up.
Oh, that's probably that's probably my problem here. Should have upgraded it further.
So I think that potential existed, but it didn't build the fights around that in a way that I think they would have needed to really like sell them as useful gadgets, I suppose. But
Yeah.
yeah, I totally understand. This kind of felt like a novelty for most people, and I totally get that.
Okay. Yeah. What about you, Viper? Would you like to see this implemented in some way in the future?
I think my answer's a bit more simple because I really would like to see them again. I just struggle to think thematically as to how they'd work in, well, at least 8, certainly. I mean, we can tell from the demo, but even then, it seems like there's... I don't know how much they get use out of them, but I could definitely see it transferring over to Judgment if indeed we do ever get a third game. I think it's already an extension of some of the feature sets you had in those 2 games to begin with, so I'd like to see if it can't continue in the main series, it at least transfers back over to there, because there is a lot of potential here, and although I'm kind of like Casey, perhaps I just didn't see all that potential because I didn't do all the upgrades or anything like that, but definitely I felt its usage was more geared towards crowd control, and then in smaller groups, you then switched over to the Brawler, Dragon, Yakuza, whatever it's called style. You then switched over to that when you had a bit more of a smaller, manageable crowd because the hits did a bit more, so in a game like 8, for example, where it's turn-based, there's obviously not a whole lot of room for them in the sense they appeared in this game, but I could see them coming back. But I think that's where they'd feel most fitting outside of this one, because narratively I have no idea how they would bring them back, but there's too much potential here to let go to waste, I think. They're really fun when you figure out how to use them correctly, which clearly I didn't. But the couple of times they shone, I really enjoyed the style, and yeah, I want to see more of it for sure. I want to see this fleshed out and perfected and polished over a couple of games, because there's a lot here that should be good for future entries. You know, they've already got a really solid foundation to move this on with, I'd say, but it's still good in the form it is. But like with everything, you can continue to make it even better. So I hope. I just don't know how, if that makes sense.
I actually think it would make sense in 8. Because
Okay.
you don't really, but not like the way you're using them in Gaiden, because you don't have the freedom of movement that you have in Gaiden. But having like one of the special attacks for Kiryu be one of the drones, or like the drones, or the spider or something, like pull an enemy over, and I don't know, that would make it would be easy to implement that way.
Yeah.
But I don't think it would be as satisfying as having it, in a battle, in a brawler type situation like you had in Gaiden. So I do agree with you guys.
Of a big swarm of drones as like one of the the really expensive Poundmate specials. You could definitely get that in there.
I'm sure some reference to the agent style is in Age. Yeah, it has to be, especially considering the story. Yeah, probably.
Well, he is on vacation, right? Oh, did we spoil stuff? So theoretically, maybe they wouldn't give him all the fun gadgets.
But is he though? That's true. Yeah,
you can cut this if you need.
No, we'll leave it on. By the way,
if he's on the clock, fair game for the gadgets.
Yeah, he has a really nice car. But anyway, I digress. Speaking of new things, the customizations. Did you do anything in terms of that? Did you buy clothes and change the way he looked?
Oh yeah,
because I didn't. But okay,
all the time.
I planned to, but I got sidetracked by other things that I found more interesting. So, Brian, please tell us how your experience was with that. So, by the way, for people not familiar with this, you can, in this game, actually dress Kiryu up, or Joryu. I'm sorry. You can dress Joryu up. Completely different character. Masks, hats, shoes, like suits, pants, and stuff. So you can change everything basically, and have fun with that if that's your sort of thing. I plan to do that, but you need money, and I was busy upgrading other stuff and playing other parts of the game. So how was it for you? How was that experience for you, Brian?
Yeah, I think I got almost every article of clothing that I could wear, both just
That's
walking
dedication.
around. Yeah, and that, well, I mean, it becomes easier if you spam the arena battles a bit, the later ones that you get a
Yeah.
ton of money. So it was very easy to just buy all the clothes, and it didn't take Akame points to have to buy them either, like it does for upgrades and things. So there really is no limit other than your tolerance for grinding. But yeah, anyway, yeah, I loved it. At one point, I dressed Kiryu up as Goro Majima. Because you could get the eye patch and
Of course.
the silver shirtless silver jacket with no shirt under, and the snakeskin boots, whole thing. It was amazing. I think he was a clown for a little bit. I had him as a luchador, and you can set up different outfits that you would have just wandering around on the street, and then in the battle arena, which maybe we can talk about at some point. But yeah, so it's I don't know. I just experimented with a lot of stuff and came up with some really crazy shit. Kiryu was like an emo dude at one point. Yeah, it kind of lets you. It doesn't give you a ton of stuff. There's probably only a few dozen objects you can, dress them in. But man, it was enough to amuse me for a while.
Okay.
Yeah, that was awesome. I think I ultimately just settled on like some sort of Oxford look blazer, and then like a news stand. What's the flat top cap? What are those called? Yeah,
I have no idea.
Just a flat cap.
And
That's all I would have said.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of those. And I also just love that he it was just very preppy look, basically.
Yeah.
And I loved the glasses. Like, he always has to have something over his face as a mask, and glasses count. And I love that he just went through the whole game expecting people not to recognize him just by wearing sunglasses. So it's like, okay, dude, it's like the Clark Kent effect, right?
To be fair, people who thought they recognized him always asked him to remove his glasses just to be sure. So I think it works to a certain degree. Especially because they were like sunglasses. So that counts. That counts as a mask, I think. So. I think so. But yeah, but it was a fun experience to customize Joryu.
I thought so. I mean, I wasn't really taking the narrative or everything too seriously, so I was happy to just have him walking around dressed like a clown or something.
You mean we should take these games seriously? My God, that's shocking. Yeah, there are certain. So maybe we can branch out here and because I think the customization also ties in with the castle, which is what we usually call the arena or the Colosseum or whatever. This time it's the castle, which is on a boat, like a big ship, actually, with buildings. Because why not? And when it basically works like the previous Colosseums or arenas or whatever. It's like different rounds and tournaments and stuff. And so that's a good way to get more money. And since you mentioned you can switch costumes and wear different things running around, the Akame Network, which we can talk a little bit about, there are certain missions that require Kiryu to dress up as, for example, a clown, which I never did because I never got the clown costume. But I was always finding that family, those parents with a little kid crying in front of Club SEGA. Yes, I know. I'll try to find the clown costume and come back, but I never did. So, first up, the Akame Network. For people not familiar with the game, how can we explain what this is? So it's a network, right? So Akame is a character you find in the game. The game is mostly set in Sotenbori, as previous games have been before. So it's not an unfamiliar area or setting for the game. It's like a little bit more confined this time because you have certain barriers, invisible barriers that don't allow you to branch out, but it's still Sotenbori. And when in Sotenbori, you find a character called Akame, who is someone who will help you and drive the story forward as well. And she has like the homeless people in town are part of her network of information. And she rewards you for answering people's requests and doing stuff for her with points and with money and expanding her network. What did you guys think of that specific mechanic? Basically, the side stories that we're used to, right? In a way. Yeah. Viper, please.
Yeah, go ahead,
You had
Viper.
It sounds
something to
like
say.
I have a more positive opinion on this one then. I really like this as a mode. As you say, it's like the side stories of the past, but I felt like at least that part of it was so much more streamlined than games before. I've always found the side content of these games very overwhelming, even as someone who's dunked hundreds of hours into them. So even side stories, having a nice list there telling you what it is, what you're doing, what you need, and what you're going to get, and how much time it's going to take, but that's not always a great estimate. But having it all listed out like that is a really nice, almost accessibility feature disguised as something else, like its own mechanic. That I really appreciate it for, the fact that this does replace that entire sub-story system, because I like the fact that there's actual in-game experience tied to it as well, because sometimes like upgrades are handled just with money, or they're handled with some sort of central experience system. So it's nice that to get a bit more balanced in the game, you have to spend more time being a good person, getting people's names out there, etc. It's the more you play the game, the more you're rewarded for it, kind of situation it felt like. So although sometimes I feel like a little too much progression was locked behind the system, in essence I quite like its existence, because it's just tying a lot of previous loose ends, previously quite messy, overgrowing parts of the game into one neat, tidy package. So I really appreciate what they went for with it, but mainly the sub-story stuff, because there were just hundreds of the things, and at least now you have a nice little list, and you don't have to go and find them all around town or do something else, or you can mess it up or miss one like you could in the very early games. It's nice that it's all just easily accessible, and Akame is a great character to tie it together as well. She's probably my favorite support character in the series, so it's really nice that it's tied together with someone who you actually like spending time with, at least in the in-game sense. So I liked it quite a bit. There's some improvements I'd make if this is a similar system to what's being used in 8 or going forward, but as a whole, it's a long-needed redo for the most part. Some bits, balancing-wise, it still needs work, but I appreciate the thought that went into trying to make things more approachable for new players, and I think that's something the game in general is significantly better at than the past couple of entries. So I'm pretty happy with it. Just needs a few extra like some significant, some not so significant changes in the future to really hit its potential.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this sums up the game in general as well, because
Yeah,
one
absolutely.
of the greatest strengths of the game for me is being a shorter game in terms of everything. But you have basically everything that you have like surrounding it, all the mini games and the activities and sub stories and everything, and you have an interesting story as well. But it's not as overwhelming as sometimes past games can be. And I'm saying this from a place of love, because I really do love previous games, and having a very large game and world to go to and escape to. But I feel like this more compact experience worked in its favor, because and we already knew going in that it would be a shorter game, but it's still easy to get sidetracked, as I am living proof of that. There's still a lot of stuff to do. So, and I agree. I hadn't thought about this in that way, but I think the Akame Network is a way to make the sub stories more accessible to people. Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah, Brian, I see you nodding. Yeah, you agree, right?
I mean, I agree that there's a convenience aspect to it. And yeah, with a tightly built game like this, I think a system like this was necessary. And conceptually, I totally agree. I love, Akame is a great character, as you mentioned, Viper. She's funny and kind of a badass and a smart ass, all the asses. And then I think as a handler and conduit to your sub stories, and all, I think that as a concept was great. I think we should also delineate in the types of missions she gave you, because there are ones that are sort of a little more tangible, that have you going through multi-step process she'll brief you on the situation, and then you have to go, I don't know, confront this gang or help this person, and so those were like kind of predetermined, a little more complex, but all housed in that list, as you were saying. And then there was the exclamation points, right? So these are just the, there's a bunch of requests we got from people around town, go see what they need, talk to them, and do their thing. I was not as much of a fan of the latter part, just because for a few reasons. They all amounted to just like fetch quests or something silly that you could just do in an instant, or if you had an item in your inventory that they wanted some yakitori or something, you could just, okay, here you go, I got it. And here's a not a Red Bull, but like, I don't know, like Mountain Dew
Pine
or
candy.
Suntory. Yeah, here's some candy. And it's like, oh, okay, cool, I completed the quest, I guess. Just check that off the box. And I think games like this, open world games in general, but especially Yakuza games, I think are at their best when my connection with their environments and their locales feels organic, and I can stumble across these things by chance, or just see a character doing some weird shit, or somebody dressed like Michael Jackson or whatever that is, right? And just wonder, like, what the hell is going on? I should check that out. And unfortunately, I just don't think this version of Osaka had enough of those curiosities to connect it in the same way that I would have with previous games. And as an extension of that, the sub stories were also a lot more predictable. Even the more tangible ones, you were always given kind of a brief of what you're going to do and who you're going to help. They still had the twists and turns and some of the emotional the emotional twists there that I do love about the best of Yakuza's side stories. I think that is traditionally one of the just the most I don't know what's a good word. It's like the most charismatic aspects of the series and things that that draw me in most. And I even feel like those were a bit diminished by just housing them in a more checklist system rather than letting me kind of be surprised and explore and discover them organically. So I think for that reason, I understand the necessity, but I also don't feel like it resonated with me in the same way.
That's fair. That's those are two good points. Two good points of view, actually.
I agree with in the middle
both.
now.
I agree with both, yeah. But I'm tempted to go to side with you, Viper, a little bit more on this, because I find that sometimes it can get overwhelming. And I do feel like I have missed a lot of great stuff from sub stories or side stories in previous games, because what I usually do is what happens with this game, but multiplied by like 10 weeks more. I get sidetracked a lot. I do a lot of stuff that is fun in the game, not focusing on the main story. And then I think to myself, there's a new game coming out, or I need to just wrap this up. And I, just fly through the main story and don't go exploring for the rest of the game. And that makes me feel like I've missed some of those amazing moments that Brian was saying, like those surprising characters and twists and turns that don't really contribute much to the main story of the game, but do make the whole experience of playing these games much, much better. So I do appreciate them trying to alleviate some of the pressure that you feel to just go everywhere and see everything. And what if I miss this? You really can't miss stuff in this game. You probably miss having those surprising moments, but I think in a compact game like this one, in a shorter game, you still do have some of those with the main I don't know what they call them, the missions maybe.
Yeah, they're not
'cause,
sub stories.
not sub stories here, but the ones that you have to talk to Akame first to complete them.
Yeah,
And the ones that appear on that list that Viper was mentioning. Those, I think, are still some of the highlights of the game for me. And some of them also feature, are a part of the fan service of this game as well, with, and not spoiling anything, but certain characters are mentioned or appear, and that's fun. That's fun. If you've played all the previous games, you're getting a lot out of this, even if you're not like completely surprised by anything, and even if you see the final twist coming, I think it's still great. But I understand. Yeah, I understand. It's a shorter Yakuza experience, if you will. So.
Yeah, and it's also a reflection of the scope of the game and the budget.
Yeah, for sure.
And time they had to devote to developing it relative to the work they would have done in tandem for Infinite Wealth. And so, I mean, I would imagine traditionally in a development cycle, those sub-stories and integrating them into the world and how they play into the world building with NPCs referencing and talking about the weird thing they saw in the other part of the city that you can go explore, like all of those things, to do that, to truly like have those surprising sub stories, requires probably a ton of work and time that I just imagine they didn't have for this, and that was just kind of out of scope, so to speak, for what this experience is going to be. I totally get that, but I mean, at the same time, I also kind of like a middle ground where, especially with the checkpoints, I think that was just really where I felt like, oh wow, this could have been randomly generated, or this could have been a Radiant system or some AI generated thing where you just put different NPCs around the map and gave them specific things they wanted. Oh, I have to play darts, or I have to get you this, this snack, or it felt impersonal in a way that I traditionally don't feel, that I feel like is usually part of this franchise's strong suit, and I just don't think it was for this game, and that's okay. That wasn't its focus, but nevertheless, it's still my takeaway.
I get it. Yeah, they probably just asked Shot DDT to come up with stuff. Yeah, yeah. What? And people listening are like, "What's Shot DDT? Play the game."
Yeah, that was legit one of my most memorable of the side quests, and again, that was one of the ones you're briefed on up front, right? So the little more kind of tangible ones, and there were a few like that, maybe like 3 or 4 that I felt, oh yeah, this is hitting that stride that I really want to, that I traditionally appreciate out of these games, and so
I think that was the first moment where I felt like, oh yeah, this is a Yakuza game, yeah. It's just silly and out there.
Absolutely.
And of course, and the guy running into danger and like getting beat up. Of course, they usually do that. Why not? This doesn't make any sense. And that's a great one. Okay, going back to the. Oh, by the way, I didn't mention my thoughts on Akame. Yeah, love Akame too. Yeah, I was actually I picked up my phone before we started recording, before I actually came back to my office to start recording. And I saw a tweet by someone saying that Akame is really popular. And I had no idea. And yeah, I felt myself really wanting Akame to be even more prominent in this game, have a bigger role in the story, and I really hope we get to see her in future games as well. Not sure if it's happening, but yeah. Apparently the voice actor in like the model for the character is a singer and an actress as well. So
No idea.
yeah.
They do that all the time, and I never even realize.
I learned this today before, like 5 minutes before we started recording. So she has like an English name. I can't remember what it is. I'll try to find it.
Let's see. First Summer Lika?
Exactly. That's it.
I just
First summer something. So because why not? Because yeah. Okay. Yeah, but definitely Akame was one of the highlights for me in terms of characters as well. And even though we're not really touching the story quite yet, I just wanted to mention something else before that. But for sure, my favorite character, new character in this game. What about the castle and all that involved the castle experience? I don't know. I get the feeling that Brian experienced it to its fullest.
Oh yeah, I indulged in the debauchery of everything it had to offer. The casino floors and
the night pool,
fighting tournaments, which you could just run in, right? Like the VIP pool, and there's two pools. You can just run in them fully clothed, and then you're sopping
the first
wet.
thing that
it takes a while to dry. I love it. Any game that lets me do that, I'm going to do it all the time.
Yeah, just missing that trophy in what was it, Uncharted 2? I think Uncharted 2. Yeah,
right.
You ran into the pool, and he said, "Marco, you unlocked the trophy." You got out, went back in again, Polo, and you got another trophy. Because why not?
It's a budget constraint. I can only imagine that they really wanted to do that.
Of course.
Yeah.
Whatever the Japanese equivalent of that is.
Maybe it is a Marco Polo. I don't know. I loved it. Yeah, I don't know if you want to like give exposition of what the boat is, or because really it is a contained, maybe not even a microcosm of Dotonbori or Sotenbori. Sorry, I say Dotonbori because that's the actual name of the neighborhood that Sotenbori is based on in Osaka. It's just a contained area that at a certain point in the story you come upon that is where all of the kind of the big fighting tournaments happen. It's a catalyst for a lot of the events of the main story, because you have the patriarch. I forget his name. The guy,
Nishitani.
The blue suit. He looks like yeah. He's I just knew him as the blue suit K-pop star guy. With a penchant for violence. Yeah. Oh my God.
The K-pop star is on point. Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, so it's where you encounter him and a few of the other characters, and some of the events roll forward. There's also a casino. It just kind of brings into one place a lot of the amenities and activities of the game. So you have the Hostess Club, or whatever they call them in this one, the casino, the traditional shogo, what do you call the
Shogi?
Traditional Japanese, the Japanese gambling games, the gambling hall.
Don't touch that.
Yeah, whatever, the gambling hall. No, I'm just talking. Yeah, I'm just trying to recount. And then the boutique where you can dress up your character, buy new clothes. The fighting tournament is where I spent most of my time. And
so, by the way, so for people who are familiar with previous games, it's basically the purgatory area of this game, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yep. Sorry,
and all its lavish glory. No, it definitely serves that purpose. I think the twist on it, which I really appreciated. I mean, you go through a series of escalating, fights of different difficulties or different, rule sets or styles. But in addition to that, there are what they call Hell Team Rumbles.
Hell Team Rumble,
right?
yeah.
Hell Team Rumble. And so this is where my imagination went wild, where because you build your team, you can recruit new people that you meet throughout the story. And it almost took that that space that would have been occupied by like the property management and business simulator in Yakuza 7. I think it was that level of dedication, at least for me, because as I was accruing new members and trying to get everybody leveled up onto my team, and you could have fights with up to 10 people fighting alongside you, and I think you could recruit a total of like 30 or 40 or something like that, and then they were all like of different styles. So some of them were healers, literally. Some of them were tanks, the defender type. Others were more strikers, DPS, whatever. And I spent way more time than I should have just fighting those battles, and there were a couple of dozen of them over and over, just to figure out what is the optimal team that I can build of all of these characters. And it got to the point, and it was really bad. It got to the point where I would just do like a medium difficulty battle and see if the character could win it all by themselves. So it could be against like 5 or 10 enemies, and it would just be me and them. And I would say, all right, I'll just stand back, do nothing, and let them see if they can beat everybody. And so for the ones that did, those got vetted onto my A team. So the ones that could beat everyone and then do it within like 2 minutes, get like a A rank or B rank. I'm like, hell yeah. So
you're basically running auditions.
I ended up building a super team. I did auditions. Yeah, I have a list somewhere of like all the times. So I got like the optimal team that I could, and balancing it to make sure we have enough healers to sustain. I think 3 healers was the sweet spot I landed on for a 10-person team. And then in the later levels, the later matches, you'd fight upwards of like 25, 30 people. And it really just got me really wanting a Muso Yakuza game. Like, give me Yakuza, but Dynasty Warriors. I feel like they got it mechanically. If they can build that out, and they have the interest in building that out in a game of that fashion, I am there. I am absolutely there.
Yeah. That's an idea for a spin-off. Yeah.
Yeah, that was my journey. And I think Sheep Man was actually like the most effective. And if you're curious, he got an A rank all by himself, decimated. Because the stats it gives you stats, right? Like their attack power, their defense, their health. None of that shit matters. What really matters is how the AI conditions them to be their aggressiveness, and I don't think that's a metric that's in any of those stats. So yeah, he just kicks ass. And then his special power, which Chicken Man also has, a little less effective, but Chicken Man's also on the A team, also very good. They just shoot weapons. Like, I think he has explosives. Chicken Man has a machine gun. Completely, you could play as these characters too in the team battle royale. So it's like, it's just fun to cycle them in and out and cause chaos however you can. Sorry, I rambled on.
No. Thank you. If Chicken Man has a machine gun is not a soundbite, I don't know what is for this show. I mean, I think that's the title right there for this episode. Chicken Man has a machine gun. How could we be talking seriously about this game when we have Chicken Man with a machine gun here? I mean, yeah. Have you dived into the castle side of things, Viper? Not to this extent.
Yeah, clearly not to this extent. I'm missing out. This is the real game that's contained within.
I think so.
So I need to spend more time with it, because I really enjoyed that mode, but I didn't even get anywhere near this deep. This is like I'm at the top of the iceberg. This is like multiple hundreds of meters below the surface, right? So in comparison to what I'm seeing, so clearly I'm going to get back to this. But like you said earlier, it is just basically purgatory from the previous games. But it's really impressive, having been so familiar with that and having seen it so many times in the games, how they managed to make something significantly more pretty. It was already a very pretty place to begin with down there. They made it prettier, and yet still way more degenerate at the same time. It's really impressive.
Yeah.
The beta version, effectively Purgatory, was really nice looking, but it was also disgusting, right? They've amplified both aspects times 10. It just engulfs it in comparison. It's brilliant. I love it.
And there's a part of the story where you have to. Sorry, I interrupted you.
That's fine.
You have to run, through the underground levels, and that gets even more disgusting as well.
Yeah,
you see everything that's going on behind the scenes, and that's a good point.
And even above ground, like, look what happens to people who lose all their money and can't pay their gambling debts. They make them just, I don't know, be naked and have to carry the cart for all the rich people. That they basically just be, I don't know, drawn carriages that they have to carry around.
Yeah,
it's messed up. Sorry, Viper.
Yeah, sorry, Viper.
No,
we interrupted you.
That's pretty much what I was going to get to. Like scenes like that on the castle, just you go, wow, look at the spectacle of this, and then you see you're introduced to certain scenes. And you're like, not only is this brutal, this is also just grim, to be honest. So that was my main memory of it. I'm like, I'm taking in the beauty of this place, but I feel like there's some more obvious imagery in front of me that they're trying to explain to me. Like, beauty isn't just what the eye beholds or anything like that. But at the same time, I am sat there going, wow, there's a lot of nice lights and there's a VIP pool and all this sort of stuff. But no, there was where I should have used the costumes. Clearly, I didn't do that. There's a lot of stuff which I've yet to explore, but this was where I spent a lot of time playing darts live. So
same.
That. Played a lot of darts live. Aside from that, I really liked the battle arena mode. Clearly, I've got a lot to learn. I, as a whole, didn't really focus too much on the side stuff, which this is the first time I've really wanted to go back and do that. I've just did so much this year, like you've said. But this is like the central hub of the most interesting side stuff, I'd say, for me personally. This is where most of the stuff that I actually really want to go back and play, as opposed to the stuff a bit further down my list. This is where most of it is. It's a really nice area, and it compacts in a lot of the game's most exciting aspects into it. So, I mean, I'm not an enjoyer of chicken with a machine gun yet. Chicken Man's not on my radar, so sooner or later I have to experience this myself. And
of course,
we'll have a second. We only have one confirmation that this exists right now, so I need to go in and make sure that this is real, right?
Yeah,
not something collectively hallucinated.
Like seeing if we'll believe anything at this point. Coming from Brian.
I mean, I have been pretty sleep deprived.
He has lived in the castle, so yeah.
He's got the evidence. He's got authority.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I can be an unreliable source. Like I've been pretty sleep deprived lately, so I've been really busy with the move. So I could be hallucinating anything.
Yeah, my main complaint with the castle is the biggest design flaw in this game, which is putting the darts live outside the battle arena reception area. So whenever I wanted to go, so I need to like play some of the arena stuff. Oh, but there's darts live. So and ever since Shenmue, darts is my favorite mini game in every video game. So yeah, I just had to play. And you can unlock, maybe unlock is not the right word, but you can recruit other characters in the game, like side characters to play with you. And there are some really good ones. There's a girl in the castle, in the lounge area, the VIP lounge, fighter lounge.
I know the one you mean.
I thought, I'll play with her. She's probably not that strong. She's like full on bullseye. Like, what?
You got to pass the time somehow, right?
Yeah.
She clearly got amazing at darts to take her mind away. Like,
I think it's
Kiryu
the lack of clothes as well that helps.
Less to weigh you down.
Exactly.
Darts tournament's about to get really weird. Good thing they're right on TV, otherwise that'd just be, you just wouldn't want to see it, right?
Okay. Anything else to mention, guys, before we get into some of the story stuff for the last few minutes of this podcast, of this episode?
Club SEGA.
Oh yeah, let's do that.
I had it on my list. Of course, Club SEGA, which is mostly what people who are not really big Yakuza fans are playing right now, right? They're getting this game for Club SEGA. Yeah, so, Viper, since you mentioned that, of course, please. be my guest. You are my guest, but
I'll continue to be it then. Fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Club Sega, of course, is always like an iconic feature of these games, but never before has it been a complete draw like it has been with this game. And although it hasn't been quite as effective as Trojan horsing people into the main game as I hoped it would be, this is far and away the best one they've had in the series. I'm sure 8 will come along and top it, but there's always been some like real good stuff in here. I mean, from the quote preservation perspective, Motor Raid was a really cool get in Judgment, and you can play that here again, so that already really nice only playable in Judgment and in arcades experience is back again. Sonic the Fighters and Virtua Fighter 2 have come up a number of times, but really Fighting Vipers 2 to a lesser extent. But come on, Daytona 2 is the star of the show. It's nice they gave us this free game around Daytona 2, right? It's such a big game and you're only buying it for that one port. But I love Daytona 2 anyway. It's a really nice version to play. It's good to have it in-home, officially, legally, depending on how you want to phrase it nowadays. Just have an official Sega version of it. Wish it wasn't the only one we had. It's kind of a shame, but as a draw, I respect it because it doesn't seem like Sega asking them to shoehorn it in. It seems like a love letter from... I heard all the Model 3 emulation in the next 2 games is exclusively because of one member of staff just wanted to make an emulator.
Yeah.
And that's why we got Daytona 2 here. So RGG are always full of love for not only old Sega games, but old games the team themselves worked on. You know, that's why we're getting Spike out next time round. So I love it. It's the best Club Sega to date in a feature that is already kind of the star of the show to the majority of outsiders. So I can't say anything more than that outside of just gushing on again about Daytona 2 and Fighting Vipers 2, which are great games to begin with. They deserve their whole own conversation another day, right? So, a really nice edition and the best edition of it to date. So, recommend.
For sure. Yeah. Respect to RGG Studio for doing this and in such a not such a loving only manner, but also such a good, technically good way of putting these games together for us. We really need a proper collection at some point on all systems, so everyone can enjoy these games. It's just such a shame we're not having this. We also have the Master System at a certain part, at a certain redacted. In the game,
after things happen, you can use the thing, right? And then you can play the Master System.
And it's interesting that one character in that place sees how ridiculous that is. He's at some point he says, "A Master System? Why? What the hell is going on here?" Or something to that effect. So it's not lost on the characters either. That's very meta. Brian, have you spent a lot of time in Club Sega?
Yes, I have. Absolutely.
Did you unlock Daytona 3?
No, I don't think that ever happened. I'll keep trying, even if it doesn't exist.
Maybe if you play with Chicken Men.
That's true. It's true. You can just shoot up the arcade cab and just will it into existence by brute force. I love that they do these. That they do this. Club Sega as a concept and having kind of that. Additional excursions, let alone with games as great as this. I think what was the other one that I loved? Did Kiwami 2? Yeah, they had a Virtual-On, right?
Yes.
So that's maybe one game I might miss, but man, that's
Kiwami 2. I think
between. So. But I love Virtua. Virtua Fighter 2 is great, and but I love Fighting Vipers 2. I love that it's kind of. I don't want to say trashy, but it's esoteric. It's very. I love it because I can play it because I'm not a super technical fighting game fan, but I feel like it suits where I'm at as a player and being able to grasp enough of just kind of the push pull of fairly simple combos, but also the mechanics of the armor and sort of the risk reward of having charge up attacks and being vulnerable while you before you can unleash stronger hits. And I don't know, I think a lot about that works, even if the characters are like literally wearing garbage sometimes. They're and then you can, knock it off. You just break their armor, and it's I love everything about it. It's actually one of my favorite fighting games, or 3D fighting games from Sega.
Mhm.
Then of course Daytona USA 2 is also amazing. I think they relabeled it in arcades in general. What was that? Sega Racing something? Sega
Sega
much
Racing
more generic
Classic 2.
title. Sega Racing Classics 2, yeah. Which is, I'm happy to see it. I feel like I'm a little bit of a different perspective just because I am very fortunate to have a version of Daytona 2 at an arcade near me.
Ooh,
And it's the hydraulic cab that has where you kind of have
nice.
the like leans side to side with the so there's something, I guess, in that experience that I love about Sega's, especially their iconic racing games, and stuff like Afterburner, Climax, and just they really draw you into the experience of being there through almost like a amusement park attraction style. Like it's like that in addition to the core game that you're playing, to really solidify the arcade experience as a destination that you could go out of your way for, and not be able to replicate at home as easily, even if you have a racing wheel or whatever. So I love that, and I play that as often as I can. So going to this, I'm just happy to have it as online or as a console, playable official port of the game, and I think it looks and plays and very well. But I also miss that steering wheel and that whole setup. I mean, even if
Yeah, for
maybe
sure.
maybe it does support steering wheel compatibility. I haven't checked, but that would be something that would be amazing if that is something they patch in, because I do feel like fundamentally, especially the Daytona series over all of the other Sega racing game series, is very much tuned for racing wheels in a way that they've always struggled to bring these games home and have them feel as good as they do in the arcades. I think the original Saturn, the rushed Saturn port, is the one that was optimized the best for a home controller. And so I almost always play those games with wheels when I can. So maybe that's something that they'll allow. But otherwise, yeah, it's an amazing game, and yeah, I love the selection and just having the Master System, as you were saying, just for the hell of it. Yeah, I think that's amazing. It's like, yeah, if you want a Master System mini, there you go. You have to just play Yakuza.
Yeah.
If only.
There you go. Yeah, I wanted to mention Motor Raid because I haven't played the
Love
Judgment
Motor Raid.
games, so in which they're part of the backlog. I'll
Ever
get to
growing.
them eventually, but Motor Raid surprised me. I had never played this before, and it's not really the most like the tightest controlling game or whatever, but it's fun for what it is. And I was like surprised that we had like this kind of I wasn't really familiar with it at all. So this like futuristic racing game with some fighting stuff in there. I enjoyed it very much. Of course, Daytona 2 was the highlight. I think it is for everyone, right? Whenever we see people talking about Club Sega, they all talk about this. So
Or just
when
the
we
game.
yeah, and when they announced this, I think it leaked first, right? That the game was
It's like a day before the Famitsu column came out or something, and
I
then that
think yeah.
revealed that it was going to be the rebadged version.
Yeah, yeah. So it's basically what some people at least are getting the game for, which is interesting. And it's nice that you have to go through a few stuff, a few things before you actually can play the game. You can actually play Daytona in Yokohama in Ijincho,
Yes.
right? So in your
Mhm.
I don't really remember how, but
I think
when
both the
you
arcades have everything, as far as I
there's
remember.
okay,
They do.
okay. So because you have to go through a street to get to you have to evade the cops,
Yeah.
right? And if you go through a certain street, there's an arcade there. That's the first time that I played the game, not in Sotenbori, but really worth it. Yeah, the Club Sega experience is always fun. So this I think elevates it to a whole different level. And it's truly recommended as 5% already. So nothing further to add to this. Just try all the cabs there. And I'm a big fan of the UFO catchers as well. I don't know why. Probably started in like Yakuza 5 or something. Because before that, I couldn't care less about them. But then I tried playing. I think it was like for a side story or something. And I got addicted to playing the UFO catchers. So I try to stay away from them, because if I try them once, I'll spend a lot of time just getting stuff from the UFO catchers. Yeah, I have a problem. It's a serious problem.
They're certainly more generous than the real life ones. Holy shit!
For sure. That's probably it. That's probably why. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like some sort of real life frustration that I'm trying to exercise or something by playing the game. Yeah,
they're the ultimate power fantasy, and that you can actually win things with ease from them.
Yeah. Really nice to get that II plushie. Yeah, always a fan of that. So, story? For the final 10 to 15 minutes of this show, shall we tell people, if you haven't played the game, if you're not familiar, if you haven't played Yakuza 1 to 7, especially 6 and 7, maybe please stop this episode and go do some.
Keep it playing, but volume down.
Yeah, that's good. That's good for the metrics.
Need the runtime.
Okay, but not wanting to spoil everything, obviously. So the first spoiler is at the end of Yakuza 6, Kiryu was supposed to be dead. Of course, he isn't. Things happened in the Yakuza world, universe, in Yakuza Like a Dragon. And Kiryu appeared there as well at some point, as well as other legendary Yakuzas. So this game explains what happened between Yakuza 6 and Yakuza Like a Dragon, and a little bit further to tie it into 8, Infinite Wealth. So, thoughts on the story? Was it well told? I'm going to go ahead and say that the ending made me cry harder than I remember in any Yakuza game before it, and I've cried. I've shed a few tears in some of the previous games, but this one, I was like, this hits hard, man. Yeah. I don't know if you felt the same, or if I'm just like...
Absolutely, yeah. Single tear rolling down for the listeners right now. It's just a very harrowing game in general, and the end is just happy yet really depressing at the same time. Even the, look, this happened, everything's going to be okay, is not afraid to tell you that actually everything about this sucks. This isn't a happy ending at all. I mean, about the closest you get is Kiryu's trip to Hawaii, which, as we learn from the demo of 8, even is spoiled as well. So everything else is just really, really sad. And this series dabbles in it every now and then, but very rarely does it spend the entire game. I wouldn't say it wallows in it, but it definitely keeps its tone a bit lower, and that's why you have the comedic relief in characters like Akame, because otherwise it would just be a very difficult game to get through at times. It's even though certain like plot points and stings, you know what's coming, you know everything's gonna work out okay. The Yakuza games put on such a pressure onto you, and it just keeps pushing and pushing and pushing, and you can't breathe, and then it keeps going, and then let go, and then suddenly it's like just the pressure mounting, right? Even though you know what's going to happen, because 7 happens after this point, for example, it never relents. And therefore you need that little bit of comic relief on the side, etc. But I loved it. It's my favorite game in the series entirely because of that story and how well the stories of the side stories, for example, wrap up any loose questions you might have had before what seems to be what's going to happen, which 8's a different thing. Don't know how much of 8 we want to talk about, but I think they're wrapping things up just in case the worst happens, right? So it's been nice to get a lot of closure. But yeah, it's a really difficult game at times to get through. It's tough.
Yeah, and I think we've never had like Kiryu talking about just how much his life sucks in general, as in this game,
Yeah.
right? So he's like Kiryu is like this stoic character, like always ready to put others in front of himself and never complaining and stuff. But this time he's like, I've given up everything, and even at the end of this game, where things seem like they're in a better place, and since we're spoiling things, so he's protecting the people he loves. That's why he faked his own death. He's working with another group, a non-Yakuza group, Daidoji, right? Is it the Daidoji?
Yeah.
The Daidoji.
Yeah, I think so.
They help him fake his death if he works for them and keeps their secrets and stuff. And he's protecting the kids from the orphanage and Haruka and her son and stuff. And at the end, you get a glimpse of, okay, things are going to work out. You've taught them well. They're doing okay for themselves. And he's like, yeah, but what good is that if I can't be with them, and if I'm alone and I just like, life still sucks. Even if I'm happy for them, it still sucks for me. Which I thought was a little bit refreshing as well, to get a different side of Kiryu. Like, I wouldn't say selfish because he's anything but it was nice to see him cry and feel like he never gets any breaks and never gets to be happy, just push on. And people are always taking advantage of who he is in a way. Again, he was trying to flee the Yakuza world and the people that knew him, but somehow that caught up with him. That's the whole premise of the series. And he had to be dragged into the whole Yakuza thing again, which is great for us because we have story in games. There's that fan service moment that I was talking about earlier, or at least referencing, when you go to that meeting at the Omi Alliance HQ, and you have that whole Yakuza Like a Dragon scene, but from the perspective of
So
Kiryu, and you see him looking at all those characters that he knows, and that's really that. I remember, 'cause I played that this morning, so I'm still getting chills remembering those scenes. That was amazing. But yeah, agreed. A pretty great story. And maybe because it was so short, the game is so short, right?
Yeah.
You don't really have a lot of those twists and turns. You have a few, obviously, at least by the end, you have a few things. I wouldn't say anything was really as surprising as in previous games, I think. You could see some of the things coming. But being such a contained game and story helped make it stronger, I feel. There was not much filler in that department, which I think was nice. What about you, Brian? What do you think? I'm rambling.
Yeah, no, I think that's all spot on. One thing I was wondering going into this game and thinking about it throughout is like, what else can they do with Kiryu, right? I mean, they were so effective in passing off the baton in Like a Dragon 7, I believe, that Ichiban is kind of where and his friends and what that like that is where I am emotionally vested at this point, and I felt like that Kiryu is somebody that we've spent so much time with, and we've kind of see him, as you're saying. I mean, his iconic stoicism constantly getting taken advantage of because he's just such a nice guy that is also strong enough to stick up for whoever will need his help. And so at this point though, it's like there's no doubt that he's gonna at least keep going, at least for a little while. We'll see what happens in 8, but he's just this Mary Sue or Kiryu Sue of a character that like nothing can really, like, I never ever feel like he's in any danger specifically, but his vulnerability lies with the children who he raised at the orphanage who are now grown, and it's like, oh, the people he's met along the way and that he's touched and had a deep just connection and impact, like his family that he's accrued over all of these games. I mean, that's kind of the exploitable weakness that both factions in this game, all the good guys, quote unquote, and the bad guys, quote unquote, all take advantage of. They're all keen to this. They're all willing to threaten that just to get him continue to get him back into doing what he's been trying to escape from this whole series. And so it is kind of miserable, and I think harrowing is, as you mentioned, Viper. I think that's a great way to put it. It is nice. There is that nice payoff at the end where Taichi, and I can't remember the other woman's or girl's name, who they grew up at the orphanage, but they kind of just say, hey, we're doing good. You raised us great. You raised us well. We we miss you, but we're happy, and I think there's just such a it is a very fascinating tension, knowing that it's like, oh great, that is technically a happy ending, but you'll probably never see them again, or if you do, that'll be like the last thing you see before they kill you or something. So for real, like something tragic. I feel like Kiryu is just destined for a tragic ending.
That's true. That's true, right?
Maybe it has to. It's such the most tragic. Yeah. At any rate, that it did answer the question, what else could they do with Kiryu? And I think I was pretty happy with that. I think there was a lot of closure on a lot of fronts, as you both had mentioned. But at the same time, looking forward, I feel like either I'm interested in seeing what happens to a more vulnerable, or like, they've alluded that Kiryu may not be in the best of health in the future game. Or in 8, and what do we, when he's faced with actual vulnerability, physically and mentally and otherwise, like how does he handle that, and then how do the people around him become the people who rally in his stead? And so I think that I'm very invested in the future of this, and I think this was a great, I don't want to say the word stopgap because that's, I don't know, just fairly uncharitable, as it's smoothing over a lot of it. But for the most part, I feel like it did a good job kind of filling in and supporting the series narrative as we look to the future.
Yeah. I think that's a good point. You said that maybe not just you, but most people at this point, or at least a good chunk of people that played the previous games, were more invested in Kasuga at this point, in Ichiban, as the future of the series. That's what we thought would happen, right? So, but I wasn't really anticipating a return of Kiryu as a playable character, as a main character in the series. But this actually just brought me back, and no, wait, I really want to see Kiryu more going forward. Of course, this is the character that I love the most. And it actually tied in everything nicely. And even maybe going a little bit further and mentioning the demo. I only played the story demo. There are 2, right?
Yeah.
There's the story demo and the
Gameplay demo.
Gameplay demo? Okay, I
world.
played the story
Hawaii demo or something.
Hawaii demo, that's it.
Yeah, something like that.
I don't know what the differences are. I only played the story demo, but it's actually nice because you see the beginning of the demo is the ending of Gaiden, right? And it makes total sense that, or not total, but it makes some sense that he's there. He mentioned that he wanted to go to Hawaii to do something, but like I think Viper said, or I don't know, he got his happy ending. He's in the place that he wanted to be to do something for Yumi, like he mentioned. But then, like he said, you couldn't wait like 3 minutes longer to call me. No, you had to call me already and spoil this moment, right? So I can't catch a break here. But it's nice. It makes sense, and we really don't really know everything about why Ichiban is there. I think, unless the other, it has something to do with his mother, but
yeah,
really,
I think it's kind of mentioned in the trailers, but not in the demo, something like that.
The demo mentioned his mother, right? So his potential mother is supposed to be there, but we don't really know much else. Things go wrong as they usually do for Kasuga in this series, and Kiryu just happens to be there looking for the same person because why not, right? So thoughts about the demo? Briefly, very briefly. It's mostly in terms of gameplay. I think the story is something that we'll get to learn next year. But in terms of gameplay, disappointed, excited. In a few words, what would you say, guys?
Well, I like you mentioned at the start of the show, I'm not the biggest fan of turn-based games, not even because I dislike the format as much as I find them very overwhelming, and the Like a Dragon 7, whatever you want to call it, I found it a very overwhelming game in general. I wanted to really like it, but it was just very difficult for me to get a grasp of. One thing I really wish they'd incorporated, which they've always been really good at in the brawler games, is easy modes, and I think even Judgment the year before, Like a Dragon 7, that I think that game had like a practically plays itself for you mode. So it was really surprising then going into 7 that there was next to nothing below normal. You had like Streets of Rage levels of Mania plus, and all this, but just no easy. So that's like my one complaint with it, really, is I got on fine with the demo. My concern is going into the main game, the same difficulty issues, because that unfortunately did hamper my enjoyment of 7 a little bit. As much as I really wanted to get into it, it just a little too difficult for me, even on the lowest level, to be honest, as someone who's not entirely familiar. And even when I have been, it's been way more basic than Like a Dragon 7. So in theory, could be great, but my preference always lies with Brawler, just because they've always done a very good job at balancing it for all skill levels, whereas I felt they've not quite done as good of a job at that with the RPG-based games yet. So that's my one hold-up. Otherwise, it's a perfectly functional system that will serve the story for me quite nicely, I think.
Okay. Brian?
Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like thinking about where they are in the iterative process, where this is only the second turn-based game, I am curious, and already through the demo, it was clear that there are. Sorry, to take a step back here, I think one of the both benefits and critiques of a turn-based system is, for people like my fiance, she's actually very interested in the turn-based games, mainly because she's not really into real-time battle systems and having to have reflexes and remember combos and all of that stuff. And so in some ways, in concept, a turn-based system breaks those down and focuses its strategy to be more, less reactive or less reaction focused and more just cerebral. But that poses its own challenges when you have a lot of systems that you're layering on top of each other, and also balanced enemies and however that looks like, to force you to have to play the game a specific way and to learn those systems. which kind of swings the pendulum the other way. And I do hope that with this next iteration or future ones, that they are able to strike that balance or give people that option, as you were saying, Viper, to not have to be encumbered by all of the extra stuff they could learn to min-max stuff, but just be functional and get through it. And but at the same time, for people who are traditional, turn-based JRPG fans, I feel like they might have come away from 7 actually thinking it was a little too simple. And so I do, and you can even see it here in the way that with the demo, where you can position your characters within a certain radius, and you can use that in tandem with the trajectory of your abilities that to hit enemies in a pattern, and use space a little more and positioning and items around you. You can actually have control over how you interact with other aspects of the battle to gain an advantage. And I love that. I am very very excited for some of the possibilities that this game will allow in experimenting with all of the different systems and mechanics. But at the same time, if they're able to kind of strike that balance, that would be great, because it's otherwise you're just catering to a completely different audience that will now feel alienated that they can't get into that system. So it's a difficult task. I actually love that they did switch to turn-based just in general, just because, I don't know, Yakuza to me has always been a JRPG, so I was totally fine with, after however many dozen games of brawler combat, them to just do something different. And but of course I don't know if that's a common conceit or opinion among Yakuza fans, but I'll embrace the change. Whatever they want to throw, whatever wacky ideas or new things they want to throw out there, I'm open to it.
I'm guessing if they're bringing Kiryu back, and if we had Gaiden be the game that it is, I'm guessing there is a significant number of people who are not really that happy with the change, I would say. But I could be totally wrong. I for one enjoyed 7, or Yakuza Like a Dragon, whatever you want to call it. I think that it was one of the less overwhelming turn-based RPGs that I've played. A little bit like Persona 5, Persona 5 Royal, which is the one that I played. I don't know if it's me or the game, but I felt like I was able to get a little bit more into the games, to those games than usual. Still, there were times where you could feel like you were a little bit under-leveled and underpowered, so you had to grind, and that's the usual problem for people who are not big fans of these turn-based RPGs. But it wasn't as big of a problem as in other more traditional ones. I wouldn't say I'm excited for this new or the second iteration of the battle system. I'm more curious than excited. I feel like the changes, like you just mentioned, Brian, being able to position your character in a certain way, taking advantage of the proximity bonus to attack and get more damage to the enemies. Those tandem attacks with other characters that can what they call them, chain attacks. I don't know. That's something that makes it more accessible as well for people who, like me and Viper, are not really that experienced in this genre of games. But to what point will they be successful in striking a balance between the two genres and the two fandoms? I'm not sure. But I hope very successful.
Yeah.
I have a feeling I'll enjoy Infinite Wealth. From what I've played with just 3 characters, at least the story demo had 3 characters. I don't know if the other demo had more.
Oh, I
I
only played
think.
the Hawaii demo. It
I played the
has
story demo.
well four characters in your
I think.
party, including Ichiban. So 3 other characters, including
Okay, so the other
Kiryu,
one has Ichiban,
or whatever he
Kiryu,
goes by.
and a character that you find at Ichiban's mother's house. Probably.
Okay, yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know. They just showed up. They just showed up
So
in
it's the
town in
same
the other
guy
demo.
in Hawaii.
Okay.
And there's an additional, I can't remember the girl's name. She's like almost the
Yeah.
fitness coach, social media kind
Okay.
of girl. I can't think. She's been in the trailers, but I cannot think of her for the life
Oh
of me.
yeah,
But
I've seen the character. Yeah.
she's the additional
Mhm.
party member you get in Hawaii.
Okay. So, judging by the 3 characters in my party at the end of the story demo, it feels right. It feels like Lad 7 on steroids, maybe, because you have more movement and you have those crazy special moves as well. There's the third character, the guy, had like a special move where he could get the enemy in the car and like just run around and spin and stuff. So yeah, the craziness is there. I just hope it's a little bit, just a smidge more accessible to people who are not experts or really big fans of turn-based battle systems. But if not,
And
I'm okay with it.
yeah, and to piggyback on some of our, I guess, curiosity, as you put it, Casey, I'm also very curious to see how they integrate it into the flow of the game, because one of the things that the brawler based games have gotten really good at is reducing the amount of burden that enemies approaching you in the environment have on your experience just trying to get to the next place or do whatever, because basically finish those battles in a pretty quick time. You don't no longer have like 30-second loading screens, which is something I completely forgot about until I replayed the original Yakuza on PS2 a little while back. And so it's like all these quality of life things that really work towards a common theme of not like forcing you to have to stop everything for extended periods before you can continue on. And that is one of my concerns about 8 right now, is because those battles, and maybe it is just the way that they're tuned, and maybe they'll tweak it as it goes on, or maybe as you level up it becomes less of a pain, but there are so many random battles, like so many enemies in the Honolulu area you're given to explore, that approach you, and including like not even just like one on every corner, but like also groups in between that sometimes. And I do wonder if they're going to struggle trying to maintain that flow in a way that prevents those fights from taking a full minute and a half in between you just trying to get places, especially since you don't really, I guess you can escape them, I mean, if you want, but like you still have to go through the menu system to enable that. And I wonder if the Segway is a response to that a little bit, in that you can ride the Segways, get places a little faster, maybe avoid battles easier. I haven't played with it too much to know for sure, get a sense of that, but I am hoping that they're able to retain some flow in you know, your inhabiting of the space and exploration to not keep it so, I don't know, cumbersome, I suppose.
Yeah. It was a little bit in 7, right? I found
Yes,
that the
definitely.
amount of enemies, the random, not so random encounters were not very spaced between each other. So it was sometimes a pain. So you had to like traverse the map in a way to try to avoid those encounters if you wanted to, but it wasn't always easy. It was if you ran into a car, the group of enemies on the other side of the road could see you and spot you when you had to run away or stuff. Was a little bit cumbersome for sure. So hopefully they'll improve that on 8. We'll see.
What did you all think of Honolulu?
Beautiful.
Says it's
I
space.
was going to say beautiful. Yeah, exactly. Vibrant, colorful. Yeah, really, really enjoyed it. Although I'm guessing I had a limited space to walk on and run on, so the Hawaii demo probably expands the map a little bit further.
Oh, it's huge in the demo,
Okay,
or at least for a
okay.
demo of these games, it's really big.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I try to run like the opposite direction I was supposed to, and they stopped me and said, "Okay, maybe I don't know where I am, so I should probably go back." Yeah, okay. Sorry. I'll have to try the Hawaii demo. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good slice of because you can see the map, and even the larger demo, I think you're only given about a third roughly of the ultimate or what will ultimately be the full map of the game. Like, you can't go across the river and access a lot of the restaurants and the arcade, or a lot of that is closed off. But yeah, for what it is, I got a good. I love the crazy taxi type mini game where you're delivering stuff with your bike, and I don't know if maybe I shouldn't talk too much.
No, it's okay. I haven't played it,
that
but I'll play it after we record this.
And there's some very weird, like Pokemon Snap kind of like the mini games in there, and yeah, so it retains that wackiness, that vibrancy, both aesthetically in the new locale, but also just it's Yakuza as you've always known it, with just batshit wonderfully charismatic and silly things just happening around every corner. So in that sense, I love it. And also, like, just from an urban design standpoint, it's fascinating to see like a place like Hawaii, which is just more spread out, and so the blocks are larger. There isn't, there aren't a ton of restaurants and shops inhabiting like a very narrow space like you would see in a Japanese city. The verticality is a little bit different. The beach is really fun. So, but at the same time, you can just ride your segways on the beach and just like annoy everybody, I'm sure, who's just lounging, trying to enjoy themselves. Just like an obnoxious American, really. But yeah, no, it's a different. It's going to take a little bit of adjustment, and maybe Yokohama was kind of a Jinsho was a good like transition to that, because that was also more spread out than a typical like Kamurocho or Osaka environment. And so I appreciate just the fundamental differences in the design of those cities, in addition to just the change of scenery.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, excellent. I gave some herbs to a chicken. That's what I have to say about that.
Wait, what kind of herbs?
Superior herb or some sort of thing. No, they were herbs, not any other kind of herbs that you might be thinking of. No. Did I create Chicken Man? Maybe. Oh my. Anyway, yeah, okay, our 90 minutes are up. We're slightly over the 90-minute mark. But anything else that we've missed? I think we've pretty much covered the game, the full Gaiden game, the demo. I think the baseline, the gist of this is just go play it, right?
Yes,
and play the demo as well if you can. It's worth it.
How did you all play Gaiden?
So I played on the Series X.
Nice. Yeah, it's on Game Pass, which I appreciate too.
So handy.
Yes. What about you?
Same.
Same Viper.
I moved between Series X and PC. Once the PC, I used the go to New Zealand trick to play it early. Then when it came out, I played it on PC for the rest of the runtime, where I marathoned it for about 10 plus hours.
Yeah. And it's handy that you get access to the demo as well. Yeah.
I ordered the PS5 version on PlayAsia, the physical copy, just because I wanted it, but I feel like it either got lost in transit or something. I haven't received it yet, so I'm a little. I don't know. I might have to get that.
Hopefully before the new year.
Yeah, right. I might have to just have them ship it somewhere else completely.
Okay, very good. So, guys, thank you for coming. I think this was. I had a lot of fun, even though I just finished the game. This was like the perfect way to wrap up my first playthrough of Like a Dragon Gaiden. So, thank you for that. One last thing before we go: how can people find you? So, Viper, let's start with that. Let's start with you. Sorry.
I made things a little more difficult for everyone, so I'm no longer on Twitter, which is normally the free link. You can find me mostly on Radio Sega. The best place is the Discord, radiose.ga/Discord. If you're listening live, hopefully you're there, or when this airs. But otherwise, I am remembering all the other sites is difficult. At the Green Viper 8 at the VIP Vipers.space on Mastodon, and at the Green Viper 8 the VIP Vipers.space on Blue Sky. They had to make this so hard for us, didn't they?
Check the show notes, people. It's all there.
It'll be there.
Yeah, it'll be there. Okay, but mostly Radio Sega is
that's the key.
the common thread here. Okay, what about you, Brian?
That's a good question. I mean, I haven't really had time to do online, any social media stuff lately. But in so much as I am reachable there, I guess Jet Brian Radio is my handle. Pretty much what Twitter. The Twitter hellscape, Blue Sky. I am on Mastodon. I think that might be. So I don't know what the sub domains.
It's hard.
Stuff
it's hard.
Yeah. I can't wrap my head around all of that stuff. .world or whatever. But yeah, Jet Brian Radio. Some search should probably find it somewhere.
Look it up, people. Look it up.
That's it. Yeah.
Put in the
Brian
effort.
Brian with an I, not a Y. I guess.
Yeah.
That's the tricky part, I suppose.
Yeah. Also, the Dreamcast, the Dream Pod.
Yeah.
That's it. So, I really enjoyed the latest episode. You were there, the 25th anniversary special.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We had a lot of fun with that. Yeah, definitely. Appreciate the support on that. That was a fun episode to just kind of chat through. I don't know, sort of the Sega as we saw them back when we heard about the Dreamcast and leading up to the Japanese launch, kind of a retrospective of those 4 original launch games, and then kind of tying it to what that represented for the console, both where Sega was at in their situation and then our enjoyment of it ultimately in the future. And then I wrote a companion piece article on the Dreamcast Junkyard that kind of dives into that, maybe a little more irreverence. It tends to be my writing style, just kind of all over the place. And then we have our top 200 games, which we finally compiled and wrote blurbs for. So that is the community's voted top 200 games for, I guess it was back in 2022 that we held that, but we finally got it all up.
It's still up to date. Yeah.
Yeah, just so it was reasonably recent. So we'll see. And then I think we'll have to do another one next year.
Looking forward to that as well. Yeah. Excellent. As for myself, it's the Sega Lounge. So just check out the show notes as well, and you can find me there. So thank you guys again for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. Spending these 90 minutes with you guys talking about Like a Dragon Gaiden. What a long 90 minutes it was. But thank you very much to everyone who listened to this as well. And remember to go check out Like a Dragon Gaiden. Remember to check out these wonderful gentlemen here and their Sega stuff as well. We'll be back next week with the season finale of the Sega Lounge, which is part of Radio Sega's Winterfest 2023. Wow. Amazing. No one saw that coming either. Wow. that's like a Like a Dragon.
What a twist.
Like a Dragon level twist. Yeah, we're having Winterfest this year again. Okay. See you next time. Bye-bye, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Ciao.
The Sega Lounge, hosted by me, KC, and part of Radio Sega's network of live shows and podcasts. Theme song and incidental music by OSC. Find them at opussciencecollective.bandcamp.com. Got any suggestions? Drop me an email to podcast@thesegalounge.com. Find us at The Sega Lounge on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You can find previous episodes of the show by going to thesegalounge.com and wherever fine podcasts are downloaded. A Mixed On Productions podcast.